Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to colleagues and friends across the world. I am Valerie Gordon, and I'm the president of the CEI, Caribbean Evaluators International, which is hosting this event along with our partners. For those of you who don't know, the CEI is a premier organization for professional evaluators in the Caribbean, and we are proud to be in our 12th year of existence, promoting evaluation practice across the region. It's also a 6th year of observing GEI's gLocal Evaluation Week, which incidentally is in its 7th year. So we missed 1 year, which was COVID year. The overall theme for this year is evaluation, evidence, and trust in the age of AI. Some 330 events took place across the world on this theme this week. There are over 20 events today, and this makes it super special that you chose to join us here. And I'm sure you'll find that it was well worth your time. Today's session is entitled Artificial Intelligence and Evidence Use in Caribbean Development Policy. The CEI and its partners are delighted to provide a platform to explore how artificial intelligence can help inform decision-making within government and development policy in the region. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our valued partners for gLocal 2026. First, ALNAP, Active Learning Network for Accountability and Performance, who is helping us with all the technology behind the scenes. Our collaboration with ALNAP started in late 2025 when we hosted an interesting webinar on evaluation in the context of humanitarian action. We're delighted to be expanding that relationship and look forward to many more long and productive years going forward. The Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies, SALESIS, has partnered with us on our gLocal journey for the 6 years that we have undertaken this, and through its Masters in Development Studies program, continues to play a key role in building evaluation capacity in the region, with monitoring and evaluation being a mandatory component of that program. And last, but most importantly today, the Office of Internal Evaluation of the Caribbean Development Bank. The CDB's first support of evaluation in the region that I know of was way back in 2010. And this is what really inspired the startup of the CEI in 2014, some 4 years later. The CEI recently collaborated with the OIE on the highly successful Youth in Evaluation Forum 2026 and look forward to participating with them on their next big thing in support of regional evaluation this year and going forward. I will now introduce our distinguished moderator, Tania De La Garza, who is managing all the proceedings today. Tania is a senior evaluation specialist in the OIE of the Caribbean Development Bank. She has more than 20 years of experience in monitoring and evaluation systems, evidence-informed policymaking, and institutional strengthening across Latin America and the Caribbean. In her current role, she leads thematic and country-level evaluations in areas such as youth, resilience, water, and social development. Formerly the head of evaluation at Carnival, she coordinated over 2,800 public policy evaluations. She also co-founded Global Evidence for Results and supports global evaluation capacity development initiatives. Welcome to you all panelists, and Tania, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Hello, everybody. It's great to be in another gLocal again. For me, it's my 13th year. So before gLocal, we started this week in Mexico with Eval Partners, ClearLac, and Coneval. So it's my pleasure to be today with you again. So as Valerie said, I'm Tania La Garza. I'm a senior evaluation specialist at the Caribbean Development Bank Office of Independent Evaluation.
Independent, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, don't worry. The eye is always, but
Sorry.
we value our independence. So that's why I said it right. So throughout my career, I have worked at the intersection of evaluation, public policy, and institutional strengthening, supporting governments and international organizations across Latin America and the Caribbean in their efforts to use evidence more effectively for decision making. It is therefore a particular pleasure to moderate today's discussion, which brings together two issues that are increasingly defining the future of development practice: artificial intelligence and evidence use. The question before us is not whether AI will transform how institutions generate and use evidence. That transformation is already underway. The real question is how we ensure that innovation strengthens, not weakens, the trust, credibility, and accountability that effective policymakers requires. And that is precisely the conversation we will have today. Before we begin, I would like participants to keep one idea in your mind. AI will not replace human judgment, but people who know how to use AI responsibly may very well outperform those who do not. The challenge before us, therefore, is not technological. It is institutional, it is ethical, and ultimately it is human. Let us begin with an organization that is already putting AI into practice in some of the most data-intensive and operationally complex environments in the world. The World Food Programme has long been recognized as leader in the use of data, analytics, and evidence to support decision-making in contexts where timely information can have life-changing consequences. We are fortunate to have two outstanding colleagues join us today. First, Elisabetta D'Amico, Head of Vulnerability Analysis and Mapping and Monitoring and Evaluation for the WFP Multi-Country Office in Barbados. Elisabetta has worked across Africa, Central Asia, the Middle East, and the Caribbean, leading data analytics, evaluation, and AI-enabled decision support initiatives. Joining her is Roxanne Beckles-White, who leads monitoring and evaluation function for WFP across the Caribbean. With more than 18 years of experience in result-based management, organizational performance, and learning systems, Roxanne has been exploring how emerging technologies can strengthen evidence, system, and improve decision-making. Elisabetta and Roxanne, welcome. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much. How much would you like me to share my screen? Or perfect. Perfect. So first of all, thanks. Thank you, Tanya, and everyone for the opportunity to speak today. We would like to share a very practical example on the use of AI for assessments, and in particular in emergencies response settings. In this situation, its value is really not theoretical, but it's where it helps us to act earlier and better. We'll illustrate this through a lessons learned from Hurricane Melissa, which we believe connects directly to the theme of this year's gLocal Evaluation Week, which really asks us how the evaluation community should embrace AI while safeguarding trust, rigor, and human judgment. So the real question, as you ask, is how do we use it responsibly, and whether indeed it generally improves decision-making. And emergency response is one of the clearest contexts to test that. So off to the next slide. So what is the problem? When a hurricane is approaching or has just made landfall, humanitarian action face immediate and very concrete questions, mostly three. First is where the impact is likely to be most severe. Second, how many people would we need our support? And third, which area should we be prioritizing first? This question needs to be answered before the field teams can deploy, sometimes before roads are accessible, and before traditional assessments are available. And this is exactly the problem that WFP 72-hour approach was designed to address. And I'll introduce the approach briefly before moving on how we included AI in this. Just to give you an idea, before impact, 72 hours before landfall, we rely on forecast. We rely on forecast on high wind speed and accumulated rainfall to understand preliminarily what's the estimate of the population that is potentially exposed to this hazard. Meanwhile, at the onset, at landfall in case of hurricanes and 72 hours after, we rely on remote sensing. And we have a multi-layer geospatial approach combining hazard data, satellite-driven, for example, floods and damage layers like IOS for those, the Earth Observatory of Singapore, and Copernicus for those who are in the field of GIS, to estimate affected population and identify priority area for response. So the goal here, and I will be focusing on the second step, is really to provide a directionable but actionable understanding of the situation at the time in which there's a clear data gap. And third, we'll have field validation up to 10 days after, when access improves, rapid assessments are ongoing, field data is integrated in those analyses, and ultimately the numbers are refined. So moving to the next slide. So what we did and how did we included AI in this type of already existing analytic workflow, right? So we moved from hazard signals to impact that we were able to assess through integrating AI-enabled data analysis. So as you might see from this map, although they're very small, what we did we have all this information. So we have the flood proxy map by the Earth Observatory of Singapore. We have damage also from the satellite imagery. We have Copernicus telling us more about both flooding and landslides exposure. We combine, and we had for the first time, Microsoft AI for Good building damage assessment. And to give you an idea, here you have a very small map, but we were able to zoom in very at building level individual assessment of whether the building was damaged. So imagine on your phone, on your Google map, we were really able to zoom at that level of high resolution and be able to understand, as AI was as analyzed, whether the building before and after, with having imagery from the before and after, was able to analyze whether the building was damaged or partially damaged. And that helped us understand, okay, perhaps, the people who are residing in that building or in that area would also be likely to have been exposed or affected by the disaster. So how have we integrated this within our analytical workflow? We looked at all hazard, flood, damage, landslide, combined them into a composite layer. We overlaid this with the 10-meter population data for the work pop, remove noise, and we were able to understand, as you can see from the map on the bottom right, that approximately 536,000 people were living in areas that were affected by wind damage, flooding, landslide, and perhaps had the building damage. This was really a pixel level data. And then we aggregated again at admin 3 for Jamaica. And you can clearly see from the map, compared to, it gives us a good understanding of which areas, which districts should we be prioritizing first. They are the one in the more dark purple, and that gives us the idea of the percentage of the population in those districts who have been mostly affected. So we were able to use this analysis at the very critical stage, very early, right after the strike of Hurricane Melissa, to prioritize where should we be giving assistance. And more than that, it was not just about WFP, right? We were able, together with Microsoft, to make this layer available to other partners through Map Action, and it was published on Relief Web, really contributing to a common operational picture in Jamaica. So what was the integration of AI? Integrating AI-enabled building level damage detection from high-resolution imagery really allowed us to move beyond proxy indicators and identifying where the impact was actually occurring or had occurred, providing stronger early evidence for decision making. Moving on to the next slide. So what is the added value of AI, right? So what did AI actually change in practice? First, timeliness with substance. It really helped accelerate the production of a first impact picture that was not only fast, but also more meaningful and closer to reality. Second, geographic precision. Working at a finer resolution and incorporating building level signals helps sharpen prioritization and reduce overgeneralization. Third, the usefulness of an early analysis, right? Outputs were shared through coordination mechanism, as I mentioned. Shared through mechanism supporting a common understanding of priority during the first critical day. However, we want to remark, AI did not replace the analytical process. It strengthened it, and it enhanced an existing workflow while still relying on our human judgment. And thirdly, and importantly, it does not remove the need for field validation and later on in-person assessments. And I'll move on now to our last slides, and I'll let Roxanne take the floor on this one. Thanks.
Thank you, Elisabetta. So what does this mean broadly for AI use in evaluation, M&E, and assessments? So AI is transforming how evidence is generated and is used. We're moving from reactive to predictive analytics, faster and more granular insights. We can now rapidly process household surveys, vulnerability assessments, and data in real-time or near real-time decision-making during critical moments. We can integrate diverse data sources, combining traditional M&E data with non-traditional sources. We just saw the satellite imagery, mobile data, social media signals, and this is particularly valuable in the Caribbean settings where our data systems are fragmented, and we would love to see what the bigger picture looks like. We also are going to strengthen evidence use culture. We're going to ensure that there are more AI-powered dashboards and visualization tools that can make evidence more accessible and more understandable to decision makers and to our partners. But we also need to ensure that we are responsible with its use, and there's AI governance systems put in place. So we need to ensure that AI remains explainable and auditable, not just producing a decision and just running with it, but maintaining human oversight in our decision making and being able to explain and audit whatever decisions are taken. We have to ensure that data protection remains a priority, to ensure that PAA collected and national data protection principles and regulations are still followed in the use of AI. It's going to give us a chance to look at capacity strengthening for responsible use. So not just randomly using AI tools, but having capacity to understand, govern, and question AI systems. And then also to promote regional collaboration to use AI governance framework so we all understand what each of our sister islands are doing, and we can work together to produce data that makes sense and is relevant. We want to make sure that data quality is maintained. This is the foundation for an effective AI system. So we need to strengthen our national data systems to have harmonized data collection across countries and a digital transformation of our monitoring systems. We want to promote common indicators, definitions, and data standards across our portfolio so that we can have cross-country analysis and also contribute more to regional decision making. And then also to invest in our human capacity. M&E, data science, and information management skills is crucial at all levels as we move M&E from simply a technical function to a strategic influence space where M&E will be a driver of program design and policy dialogue. So in closing, the journey continues for us from measuring results to shaping the future. where AI will empower our evaluation, M&E, and assessments to be more timely, predictive, and impactful for the Caribbean's most vulnerable. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. And what strikes me about your presentation is that it moves the conversation beyond technology and into effective support in emergencies and institutional learning. AI is valuable not because it generates more data, but because it helps organizations transform data into actionable evidence and ultimately into better decisions. Thank you. So our next speaker brings the perspective of a multilateral development bank operating at the intersection of evidence, economic policy, digital transformation, and development finance. José Luis Savoin is an economics specialist in the Caribbean Country Department of the Inter-American Development Bank. Prior to his current role, he worked in the IDB's Andean Department and at the International Monetary Fund. His expertise spans development macroeconomics, fiscal policy, digitalization, nowcasting, and technology adoption, and he has led research and data initiatives across Latin America and the Caribbean. José Luis brings a unique perspective on how AI is reshaping the production and use of economic evidence for policymaking. José Luis, we are delighted to have you with us.
Thank you, Tanya. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Should I share my screen or the slides are going to be?
Yes, how one? If not, go ahead, share it, please.
Okay. I'm sending a request now.
Yes. Okay, Roman, can you grant?
I don't receive your request,
No.
Jose.
Okay,
So if not, send me the presentation and I will show it. Share it with Roman.
Okay, I share it. It's in the chat group.
Great. So just a minute. And of course, when we are alive, these technical issues happens. So bear with
I think
us.
I am able to share now.
Oh, okay, great. Go ahead.
Perfect. Sorry, let me just swap the display. Can you see it?
Great. Yes,
Perfect.
yes, we can see.
No, very quickly because we lost 60 seconds on this. So, and thank you for inviting me and trying to talk a little bit about how at the IDB we are doing or we are using AI or how are we enhancing, because that's the work, enhancing what we do, at least on the country monitoring level, which is what we do, what country economists do. So for this presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about 4 buckets of what we do. We do a lot of research and econometrics and technical work. That means modeling, coding, doing literature reviews, etc. We also do a lot of data drudgery, right? We use spreadsheets, forms, reconciliations, a bunch of government data and government documents. And we also do, like all of us, a lot of analytical writing. We do briefings, talking points, prepare particular or periodical, journals like the Caribbean Economics Quarterly, which is a publication of the IDB that has been going along for quite a long time. We also prepared country development strategies or country development challenges in which we take a stock of the whole development landscape in a country. So it's a lot of work, no? And we also do a lot of stockholder judgment. No, we have to read the room. We have to provide recommendations to country directors, but more importantly to our client, to the country, to the government, to the authorities, to the policymakers. So AI is a leverage, on this evidence pipeline, and it's very different the use in each of these buckets. Let's call it like that. No, so I am going to be treating them separately. So in the first bucket, something that we are actively working on and is related to what Elisabetta and Roxanne were talking about is because there is a lot of data scarcity. at least availability of data, particularly in the Caribbean. So we are working on nowcasting GDP. And nowcasting is basically to try to understand or project or have an idea of a variable that is going to be published, sometime after. So for instance, GDP is published, let's say, around 2 months after the fact. Let's say GDP for the first quarter, which entails from January to March, is published in May. So for a policymaker, you have to wait to see what's going on in the economy like 2 months. And this is on a standard country. In some of our Caribbean economies, as we all know, it takes 3 months or even 4 months. And some countries don't even have it on a quarterly basis. So for a policymaker, you need to understand what's going on to try to make decisions early, right? So what we are using a lot of satellite imagery, but we are also leveraging all of the traditional data, let's say, financial data, fiscal data, trade data, with trade partner data, or balance of payments data, monetary data, to try to labor market data. We try to swap, sweep what is there and try to put it in a single data file. And we use AI for that. We use top-notch software and top-notch algorithms to kind of get the data from the PDFs, get the data, let's say, from the satellites, and consolidate that. And then once we have all that data, massive amounts of data, I'm talking about sometimes 300 variables, 500 variables, and put them in top-notch, econometrics and machine learning models to try to understand, what's going on with the economy. To answer the question, is it the economy growing? Is it the economy contracting? Is the economy decelerating, etc.? So how are we using AI for this? We basically one toolkit, and we are applying this toolkit for 6 countries. And this is something that is, complicated because, as I was saying, 300 variables, we get data from satellites, Google Trends, Comtrade, PDFs. Then we select the variables through a technical procedure. So which variables are we going to use? Because maybe not all variables are useful. So we try to reduce the amount of variable. We try to check, which is the best model, because an OLS regression could work, but, something more complicated from, like a random forest from the machine learning literature will work. So with the AI, we created an ensemble, a whole pipeline that gets the data, checks the models, evaluate the performance of the models, and then produce results in very nice charts. And, just to compare, right, before the AI and after AI. So before the AI for us, it was a process, to design a toolkit for one country could take weeks, right? And apply and evaluate, it could be months. But with AI, we are now doing 6 countries, and it takes, the whole, check and evaluate performance and get the data and all that kind of stuff. It takes weeks and sometimes takes hours, right? So the AI integration has been very well. And that has allowed us to transfer this knowledge, right? So we have been doing training of these toolkits in several Caribbean countries. We started in the Bahamas, to different agencies, central banks, Ministry of Finance, statistic agencies. We did it in Jamaica, and next week, actually, we will be doing it in Barbados with a working group that we have created with different government offices, no? So I guess that the net takeaway from this experience is that, without AI, we could have done, like only one country at a time. With the AI, we are doing, 6 countries at a time. So it's a tool to scale up. On the second bucket, we also have to work with data for day-to-day stuff, no? So I wanted to bring some, so I was thinking, so what I'm going to talk about. So let's say what I have been doing over the last 3 months, particularly with the AI. So I said, okay, so we have our biannual macro assessment. And with that, we have, standard tables, standard charts. We also have to see, assess the narrative of what's going on in terms of policy from the Ministry of Finance, from the central bank. So what we do, because we have a template, is to integrate this with the AI, particularly using Copilot and Cloud Code, to do like a first pass of the draft. So here's the data, update the model, update the tables, and let me take a look, right? So, and we do the same for the Caribbean Economic Quarterly, particularly with the one in which we update the macro, which is very standardized. So the AI is really helping us, to update the data, update the tables, and then let us know to do more analytical work, right? So I will say that this is a bucket that none of us in the development work claim that as a victory, but it saves hours and weeks of work. It has zero glory because you cannot sell this, but it has the highest return of investment because the time that you're saving, you are devoting to stuff like the nowcasting that I was telling, or to do more analytical or more advisory work with the government and our senior management, right? And the other thing is when we do the analytical writing, and we all know country strategies, Caribbean Development Bank, IDB, World Bank, other countries. So we have to translate diagnostics from all of the sectors, social sector, health, education, infrastructure, energy, transport, financial, everything. We have to translate the diagnostic into some priorities for design our country strategy. And we have been, working together with AI, and it has been a game changer, right? To try to streamline the processes, try to help us prioritize, and also, involve a lot of the interaction between judgment and evidence, right? And of course, we also do senior management briefing notes. Particularly, there was an example here in the Bahamas. We had an election recently, right? And we wanted to understand, what would be the policy landscape, right, after the elections. And as you know, political parties have these huge manifestos on what they want to do with when they are in government. So we were able, with the AI, try to synthesize and get the main, points and try to connect those with our country strategy, etc. So we got at, a lot of time. So it helps on synthesis, it helps on structure. Basically, it's the first draft of everything, no? But what is still on us, the voice, what's the tone, right? Where are the judgment calls? What are we going to leave out? And what will be the headline, of course? Moving to the fourth bucket, which is how we interact, right, with the client. So in that, I would like to say that there is a line that is drawn, right, between what we have with the AI right now and where, the human factor steps in. So let's say, what I no longer do by hand, let's call it like that. So I don't work on, very complex pivot tables or CSV cleaning, first drafts or routine briefings, this boilerplate, econometric scaffolding, these very complicated models, replicating code across countries. Of course, we have a baseline and then we tailor the code, but have like a general code for, let's say, for 6 countries in a pipeline that is taken care of with the AI, reformatting, text in LaTeX, in Word, in Excel, etc. But what we cannot delegate. So what is the identification strategy for a project, right? The AI cannot read yet the counterpart's mood, right? Picking the 2 sentences, the punchline where you're talking to a minister, and owning the recommendation, right? Knowing when the model is wrong, because sometimes, you can detect easily when the model is wrong. And in the last 2 minutes, I just want to give you 3 slides, because as an economist, and I have to show, we always have a model in mind. So it's a very simple model, in 3 slides, 1 equation. So let's say that, because I don't want you to get in the danger zone, because these are one of the risks of AI. So let's say that cognitive tasks, or products, right? Research, analysis, etc., are produced with inputs, right? Let's say one is human time and the other one is machine time. And the production function is a production function, you name it, but it uses 2 inputs. And let's say that production function looks like that, the more human time you put, the more output you have, right? But let's say that with AI, there is a shift on the machine time, which is the orange line, right? So that shifts, right, the production with the same human time, right? So that means that you are producing with the same time better output, because you have more time to do more analysis, as I was saying. You have more time to judge. You have more time to look to the client. You have more time to think on the identification strategy, right? So if you maintain H, right, the output is unambiguously good. 2 more slides, 2 more charts. However, AI induces time reduction. So tasks feel easier. There is a temptation to reduce age, right? But there is a safe zone. And that safe zone is called H bar in the chart. Because you will notice that with H bar in the chart and with H star, which was the time that we were devoting before AI, the level of output is the same. So basically, with less time, we can produce the same quality and the same quantity of output. So as long as this H is between H bar and H star, we have gains, right? Because with just a little bit more time than the lesser time that we have with AI, we can have an increase in quality. However, do not get into the danger zone, because there is a point, right, in which if you are below H bar in that chart, that you will feel, let's say, overconfident, in which our output will be less than the one you will be having before AI. So there is like a paradox. So a productivity enhancing technology, which is AI, could reduce total output if the behavioral response is large enough. So you can get overconfident and say, let's do everything with AI, like renaming a file with the AI, right? So I just wanted to put that, don't get into the danger zone. So how to start on Monday? If a recommendation is allowed for me. So pick up a recurring tasks, that you resent. For me, it was, updating the tables of the macro assessment. Do it with AI 3 times to get that report and get that workflow. Save the prompt, etc. Build a small template, like a root or a memory file, and then try to do your task again. So in the end, the AI is like a junior A who never sleeps, but needs supervision. And before I finish, this is the last slide, I just want to say that the AI is just moving the stack, right? So from a doer, from a reviewer to a judge, it doesn't matter where you are in the stack, right? So I will leave 2 questions for the room. What's one evaluation task? Because I am talking with evaluators. It's an honor to be with you, by the way. Would you trust AI to review, but not to judge? And then where on the stack, right? Where on that lever is your team stuck? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jose Luis. I enjoy your presentation, but also it reminds me of a lot of my economic classes. And actually, I was trying to identify the optimal point, right? So thank you so much. But we know that AI is transforming not only how evidence is generated, but also the speed at which evidence enters decision-making process. So that creates extraordinary opportunities, but also, and you raise it, an important question: how do we ensure the faster evidence remains credible evidence? And that questions bring us naturally to governance and evaluation. Evaluation has always been concerned with evidence quality, learning, accountability, and responsible use. As AI becomes increasingly embedded in institutional systems, evaluators have a critical role to play, not only in assessing results, but also in examining assumptions, biases, risks, and unintended consequences. Few people are better positioned to speak about this than Serena Rossignoli. Serena is Senior Evaluation Officer at the Caribbean Development Bank and an international recognized evaluation professional with more than 20 years of experience across multilateral development banks, United Nations agencies, and international organizations. Throughout her career, she has led complex multi-country evaluations and worked with institutions including UNESCO, the World Bank, UNDP, FAO, and the European Commission. Serena, over to you.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yes? Okay. So today I want to share you an initiative of the Office of Independent Evaluation at the Caribbean Development Bank. It's called Evaluation Assistant, which is an AI-powered platform built to make our evaluation knowledge, accessible, shareable, and useful. In the next slides, I will walk you through the problem it solves, what it does, and how we get there, including potential challenges and solutions. Well, that in the next slide, thank you. So over the years, the Office of Independent Evaluation has produced dozens of evaluations and project completion validation reports. So which means in total hundreds of documents, if you include all the annexes and the related study. And this is an enormous asset, despite we are a small office compared, to bigger offices worldwide in other peer organizations. But the reality is that most of that knowledge is extremely hard to be used in practice. So when a staff member from CDB needs to answer, what have we learned about a water project in the Eastern Caribbean? They face a manual research across multiple folders, reports, and databases. That takes hours. And often is very difficult, and the research in reality doesn't materialize. Not because people don't care, but because of the cost in time is simply too high. The results is pretty common across evaluation and across development institution. Evaluation are produced, filed, and generally underutilized. So the recommendation basically don't travel, lessons don't accumulate, and decisions get made without the evidence that already exists. So this is the problem that we wanted to fix. Next slide. So the evaluation assistant is an internal artificial intelligence platform, which means that is available. I think there is something wrong with the slide. We are in the previous slide, sorry. Okay, thank you so much. The evaluation assistant is an internal platform, which means that it's available only for OIE CDB staff, including the board of directors, and use only internal documents. And it does three main things. The first, it synthesizes, so ask a question about a country, a sector, a team, and it pulls together the evidence across, our evaluation portfolio. The second thing that it does, it compare, feed into a strategy document. For example, we spoke before about country strategy, and it will cross-check if, against our evaluation evidence, telling us where, there is an alignment or where the gaps are. The third thing it does, it visualized. The results can come, with dashboards, maps, tables, not just wall of text, which makes, easy to access the results. And the key point here is that we are not replacing, as already some of my predecessors mentioned, the evaluation judgment. We are eliminating the manual search work that stands between the evaluator and the analysis. And this is the important part. Next slide. So just a few numbers to make it a bit more concrete. So we estimate we are a 70% reduction in time spent researching for evidence. And time goes back to analysis, quality, and strategic thinking. 100% of our documents are indexed and searchable, not some of them, but all of them. And then we have a 24/7 access for all the staff, not just evaluators, but anyone at CDB who needs to draw on our evidence can access anytime the evaluation assistant. And the broader impact is about four main things. First, better decision grounded in evidence. Second, a more efficient use of time. Third, institutional memory that doesn't walk out the door when people leave. And fourth, full transparency. So every answer is really traceable back to the source of the document that generates. So you can go and double check, cross-check the evidence. Next slide. So how did we get there? We estimate to have 4 phases. The process is not completed, just to be clear, but we are still finalizing it. The first phase was foundation. So we basically did an inventory of our documents, select the artificial platform, and start exploring also the governance and data protection rules in place. The second phase is about we built a first working version of the platform. We focus on core function only. We index the evaluation documents, develop the interface, and then we run a first internal test within our team, the evaluation team. The third phase is a pilot. So we plan to roll it out to a selected group of staff within CDP, so beyond the evaluation office, collecting feedback and refining the model if it's needed. And the fourth phase is cleaning up full access across OIE integration with other platforms within the bank, but also, scoping the legal framework in place to govern the ongoing use. Next slide. I want to be honest about the risk because, as also my other speakers mentioned, there are risks when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence, and because understanding the risk is very important because it's where we can build or lose credibility of the tool that we are using. And there are three main risks when it comes to use this type of tools. The first risk, data quality and bias. If the documents going in the platform are incomplete or unrepresentative or not robust enough, the outputs that you get will be the same, poor quality. That's why we use only verified official OIE documents, no external sources, no uncontrolled inputs. Second risk, hallucination. AI language model can generate plausible sound text. This is simply wrong. And this is, pretty known and serious risk. And our mitigation is technical. We use the retrieval augmented generation. So every answer the system gives is grounded in the actual retrieved documents, not generated from scratch. And so basically it doesn't invent it, but it retrieves and synthesizes the documents. And the third risk is over-reliance on automation. So the biggest institutional risk, if the staff start treating artificial intelligence outputs as conclusion rather than inputs, then the methodological rigor can suffer. So our safeguard is really structural. So we need human in the loop at every step to ensure that the quality and the robustness of what we get. So, and then the last slide. Thank you so much. I'm I'm glad to be here today with you and share this experience. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Serena. Listening to all three presentations, I hear three recurring themes. First, AI is no longer a future possibility. It is already becoming part of institutional evidence ecosystems. Second, trust remains the currency of evidence. Without trust, data has little value. Without transparency, AI has little legitimacy. And third, technology does not eliminate the need for human judgment. If anything, it increases it. Our final speaker hardly needs an introduction in the Caribbean, but it's a pleasure to provide one. Professor Lloyd Waller is one of the region's leading voices on artificial intelligence, digital transformation, resilience, governance, and development policy. He serves as director of the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies, ALICES, at the University of the West Indies, global director of the Global Tourism, Resilience, and Crisis Management Center, an advisor to governments and regional institutions on issues related to innovation and evidence-informed policy. What makes Professor Waller particularly valuable for today's discussion is that he combines expertise in artificial intelligence with deep experience in monitoring, evaluation, and learning systems. Today, I have asked him to help us answer a critical question. What does responsible AI use actually look like for evaluators, policymakers, and evidence professionals? Professor Waller, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Are you hearing me? Hear me? Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Lloyd Waller. I'm the director for SALICES. I teach, publish, research, on various qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods, as well as evaluation-related research activities. And yes, there were some discussions about me. Oh, I need to move this from the screen. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so there were some discussions about what I do with AI, but I like to introduce myself as a techie and also a Trekkie. So the image you seeing on the screen there, it's not accidental, and I think it summarizes a lot of the concerns and also the hopes of the former presenters in terms of looking at the Jamaican field worker in a particular community using the tablets and the dashboards and Gen AI. And the robot is there, not as an evaluator, but and not as a policymaker, but represents AI as a support tool to gather, organize, analyze, learn from the evidence. So the reality is, and I think I'm summarizing, I'm glad I'm last. I think I'm summarizing what everyone else is hoping, that the human field worker remains central, the community remains central, the evaluator's judgment, as the last presenter was talking about, the interpretive intellectual capabilities of the evaluator versus the AI. So the evaluator's judgment remains central. And the starting point, therefore, is simple, that AI is not going to replace evaluation. It will only enhance evaluation. And let me go through and explain why. Interestingly, so this presentation is lifted from a chapter of a book that myself and a few persons are writing, looking at how AI is enhancing the research methods, research broadly, qualitative, quantitative, mixed evaluation. Evaluation still falls under research, even though the evaluators have separated themselves from the researchers. It still falls under research, technically speaking. And I was happy to hear and comforted to hear, some of the projects that were highlighted, because we have interviewed many persons who have highlighted some of these projects, and from this data that we've collected, the findings that we're presenting here is the first prior to the book. So I'm highlighting some of the key findings that we've highlighted, which I think will also help the evaluation ecosystem to understand how to use AI and what types of AI to use and under what circumstances. So it was agreed, and we all know that data is an essential moment of the evaluation process, but it's also at the epicenter of AI. But data in and of itself doesn't automatically produce decisions. The decision-making process is much deeper. It looks at intelligence, it looks at learning, it looks at timely action. How AI has been used in the data that we've looked at is we're seeing how AI has been used as a tool to enhance that kind of intellectual capabilities as it relates to periodic reports. There was a time in which the reporting process, the reportage, would have been systematic in terms of 3 months, 4 months, a year, interim report, post report, preliminary report, inception report. But we're seeing how AI has been integrated in the report process to provide real-time evidence about various problems. So we have situations, and we'll talk about it shortly, where there have been projects where they have been using AI agents as tools to help in terms of monitoring and providing updated reports, in some instances daily reports. And we can understand, we're all evaluators here, we can understand the complex and verbose and Herculean task of preparing reports, of chunking through many types of data points, of looking at the transcripts, of looking at the times the transcripts came in. And what is happening now is that through Claude, many evaluators are creating what we call Claude skills, which are skills that you can develop and embed in Claude to help you with regard to the analysis, as it relates to creating agents, and that's their specific task. And I have an agent, as a matter of fact, not necessarily for evaluation, but I have several agents that I'm using through Claude to do research, but I have a administrator who manages and collects the information from the agents and relay the information back to me. Mark you, there are some costs associated with the agents with regard to Claude, That's a conversation for another time. But the bottom line is that this is available for persons to use. We've also seen data whereby as it relates to compliance, we've moved from looking at just compliance indicator to learning how these indicators are used, to learning how these indicators have been used, whether the activities are producing the change that the project is actually required, whether or not the assumptions are holding. And it's not just about ticking a box and saying, okay, we are compliant, but using that data to go through some meaningful information. I'm going to show you something that's amazing shortly in terms of how I go through data these days. And then we also want to look at moving from end-line evaluation to continuous adaptation. End-line evaluation, it can be tedious in some instances. The evaluation must help teams to understand what is happening, to improve outcomes, to look at the outcomes as they emerge. In qualitative research, it's the same as doing data collection and analysis simultaneously. But as human beings, it's difficult to look at many different types of data set and do that simultaneously. The AI, something as simple as ChatGPT or gLocal has been used to do so by just uploading a Microsoft Excel sheet. Some of the persons that we've interviewed, this is the approach that they've taken as it relates to capturing data on a Microsoft Excel sheet and then uploading it. And we're also seeing a lot of, and I'll talk about that shortly as well, we are seeing a lot of stacking. So like, for example, Excel stacked with Kobo tool, stacked with ChatGPT, and the person's trying to identify what specific types of activities are important to use for certain outcomes. I think this is important. You can burn through a lot of money trying to understand the different types of AI. I don't know how many are you using it, but if you're a serious AI user, this is $200 for Claude, $100 for ChatGPT, another $100 for gLocal, $50 for Canva. And we experiment, and in some instances we even forget until we notice our credit cards going down. So we experiment. I think it's important. This aspect is very important in terms of capturing the stacks that work for particular outcomes, to the learnings from these persons who are doing evaluation, so that it can help us to know if we're doing a kind of real-time evaluation with looking at, results based, this is the stack we use. If we're doing a kind of learning aspect, this is the stack we use. And so that particular data, I'm very happy in terms of we're capturing to save us as it relates to cost and time to understand what's happening. And the last thing I wanted to talk about in this particular segment is a shift from a kind of static dashboard to looking at predictive insights, using multiple agents and using yourself also as a kind of bridge between the agents. We're seeing how rather than waiting to see what the outcomes are, that there are predictions and multiple types of predictions that are being done through various AIs to anticipate possible outcomes. Now, there's one aspect of AI I just wanted to just pause and just say something about. Prior to ICT for development, prior to Gen AI, the coders and the IT experts were the ones with the knowledge base, because it required a kind of intellectual dexterity to code and understand and to structure. That has changed. So what we're seeing right now is an opportunity for the first time for those persons who were not trained in programming, we're not trained in mathematics, we're not trained in computer science, to kind of use, even just speaking to the AI, to create applications, to create ideas for applications that you can upload to Fiverr. I'm just pausing to say this because this is what we're actually seeing in this field, in terms of how evaluation is now evolving, in terms of product development, in terms of new ideas, in terms of selling the Caribbean or as a mechanism or a tool, or showcasing as a kind of epicenter for evaluation, which is actually the case. We have a lot of data points as it relates to evaluation, but that's something that we'd like to just think about quickly. And for this particular slide, I just wanted to just quickly identify, some of the things that we've seen so far. I think someone spoke about GIS. I think the first presenter spoke about GIS. We're seeing a lot of GIS integrated with ChatGPT. We're seeing a lot of GIS data being uploaded and being used in Claude. We're seeing a lot of data analytics being used by ChatGPT and other applications. The one most interesting observation that we had would have been this. I just wanted to highlight it first.
You take notes. Claude just became your best thinking partner. But first, you need to download this free note-taking tool called Obsidian. It links all your notes as .md files in one place called a vault. Say your project notes connect to your meeting notes or your ideas connect to your goals. Next, simply connect this to Claude Code using the Obsidian CLI, and it will build an entire web of how you actually think. After that, ask Claude to build you custom commands. That falls into two categories. Daily operations, like a today command, that pulls your calendar, tasks, and recent notes into a one-day prioritized plan. Then there's thinking commands. Say an emerge command that surfaces ideas you've been circling for months, but never actually named. And that's how Claude connects the dots for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest. From all of the data that we've collected, this was the most interesting, and I tried it. It was as simple as the person said to do it. I just watched a YouTube video and I tried it, and I basically uploaded all of my data on research methods, my books, my articles, my lecture notes, and basically duplicated myself. And at one point I was having conversations with myself about the data, and I decided to apply it from an evaluation standpoint to a project that I worked on. And it was quite interesting that the outcomes, the findings, the conclusions were a little bit different from the ones that we had. And I'm just, sorry, I'm just, flabbergasted by, I was blown away by the possibilities of how we can use these tools as a mechanism to enhance our capabilities and to create that kind of true development, that kind of true integrative policy framework that can transform outcomes, from a continuous basis. And we're all evaluators, so we know we do the work, we know we collect the data, we submit the report, but there's always a breakdown, especially when it comes to sustainability, especially when it comes to follow-up, especially when it comes to capturing information. That can all change right now. The possibilities are quite endless, even using WhatsApp, because we interviewed some persons in Belize, and they maintained contact with the beneficiaries up to a year after using WhatsApp, an AI-enabled WhatsApp application that they developed themselves. So I'm just basically highlighting some of the findings to say that this is a very critical aspect. We also saw the use of machine learning. UNICEF's most recent operational framework highlighted how machine learning can support evaluators working with large qualitative and quantitative data. We've actually seen that this is the case. Many evaluators kind of shy away from the kind of quantitative aspect of evaluation because it can be very complicated using SPSS. I teach statistics, I teach SPSS. I do understand and appreciate, but today you can just upload an Excel spreadsheet with the help of some YouTube videos and ask that very same Excel spreadsheet the very same questions you would ask a human being about the data, which is very helpful. You can ask it to create the tables and charts for you. You can ask it to identify individual gaps and how to address the gaps. In other words, the typical use of ChatGPT and Claude for just as a web browser seem to be evolving to a more serious application and use and application of these AIs for serious evaluation activities. When we first did a kind of preliminary study 2 years ago, it was primarily ChatGPT doing a quick search, summarizing data. So we were very happy to see that the follow-up study that we're doing has highlighted that evaluators are now recognizing how AI can be used for evidence synthesis, for machine learning, for policy evidence assistance, and for also spatial analysis. Where is it? 1 second. We'll skip through some of these. All right, so there are many different hardware paraphernalia that we have actually discovered. There was one that I really wanted to highlight here. I have mixed feelings about this application. Not because I had mixed feelings about seeing the use of this application when I watched Black Mirror on Netflix, but because it is going to become an emerging technology right now. As I said, I have mixed feelings, and I can imagine you all will have mixed feelings, but it does have a lot of potential in terms of capturing data and giving yourself a second eye, looking at spatial related issues, doing visual evaluation, and this is the application.
Please tell me what just happened in that meeting.
So this is technically speaking a little pin that you put on your person, and it's an AI agent that follows you around. It sees everything you see, it hears everything you hear, it stores the data on a cloud. You can have conversations with it about what you saw earlier, what happened earlier, about basically what was seen and heard. It's kind of a little invasive, to be quite frank, and I don't know how we're going to escape it, because already I think many different once this becomes popular, which I'm sure it will become popular, I'm almost certain that the eyewear companies will also integrate a similar technology in the various different smart glass applications that exist. But I do see the value in terms of getting a second eye, especially if you have to do visual evaluations, or especially if you have to hire persons to do visual evaluations for you. And the last slide I would like to talk about is agentic AI for Mel. This is perhaps one of the most interesting observation and activity from the data that we've actually identified, as it relates to how we in the Caribbean can enhance our capabilities to provide better quality policy advice using AI. We all know agentic AI is the next level of AI. I guess it's artificial general intelligence or artificial super intelligence, but these are basically tools that our friend of mine that would like to say creatures, but tools that we create that are automated, and they run on their own. You can give them instructions, review data overnight, or if you have a dashboard with your staff uploading data for a project that you're working on as it relates to evaluating a specific program, you can focus on other things while the agentic AI analyzes the data for you, prepares the reports. If you would set parameters, if it flags certain things, if it flags it would send you a WhatsApp, send you a text message, or even call you and have a conversation about what it has flagged and how you think it should be treated. And you can give it verbal instructions as it relates to how to fix the data, or how to address the data, or how to manage the data. And then it will, prepare the final report as an individual. So, this is the thing. So this is I think this is our last slide. I mean, I had some recommendations, but the only thing I'll say is just prepare. Train yourself, watch YouTube, many videos. Everything I've learned through this data collection project, and I've taught myself on YouTube, and most of the persons who I've spoken to said, YouTube and a couple of short courses. So I can definitely say, I can answer the question, Ms. Gonzalez, that yes, AI is being used as a mechanism to enhance policymaking in the Caribbean, and can even further strengthen the quality and outcomes of evaluation in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you so much. And actually, we are just getting to the final part of this presentation. So I I already received a couple of questions, but I think in your presentations you already answered. Some of them was, what is the biggest opportunity AI presents? What is the biggest risk? How do we maintain trust when algorithms increasingly influence analysis? What skills should future evaluators develop? What should never be delegated to AI? So, of course, all our participants and panelists already answered those questions. So, in order to wrap it up, I will like you to have a round of 2 minutes trying to answer a couple of questions. You decide which one you want to answer, okay? So, the first one is how to transparent the use of AI in evaluations or assessments when there's no institutional principles to do so. And the second is, imagine we are having this conversation again 5 years from now. What do you hope has changed? Okay, so let's start all the other way around. So, Lloyd, 1 minute to answer the whatever question do you.
Well, the second question would be, as it relates to, what has changed is, greater impact. Post-project evaluation tend to identify that, in some instances, impact is not as impactful as hoped. The outcomes, maybe a check on the box, but did it affect the women? Did it affect, individuals? Were there serious change as it relates to an understanding of the environment? So I'm hoping that, these tools would give us, greater powers to be able to get a better understanding of what is happening and to make more effective policy. As I think it was Jose, I think when Jose said that at one point he needed 6 months to evaluate 6 countries, and he can do 6 countries now in 6 weeks. So, these are efficiencies that spread impact and allow us to be able to have a greater impact on what we're doing. So I'm hopeful that at the end of the year, when we look back at our data and our KPIs, the outcomes and the impacts will be much, much greater than traditionally what they were.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. Serena, your turn.
Thank you, Tanya, for this question. I'm going to pick up the first one. The transparent use of AI. So I think we are now really in a transition phase where we need to have in place all the legal, ethical instruments, and we are a bit navigating without specific framework. So what we can do now is, first of all, we need to disclose in every product the use of artificial intelligence. So if a report has been produced with the support of artificial intelligence, this has to be disclosed. The second thing we can do is, to document the process. So not just the output, not just saying this report has been produced with, but, keep a record of, how the documents fed in, how AI generated the context. So in this way, you create a sort of audit trail, which helps, being more transparent. You can establish, if your organization doesn't have a specific framework for the use of AI, you can establish your own team standards, which is, helps in being transparent. In, I don't know, in the case of the Office of Independent Evaluation, we follow these standards. And then, there are already some, not framework, but some reference point. The World Bank recently published an artificial intelligence strategy. There are some UN guidelines. So there are principles moving on. So particularly when you are going to establish your own internal standards, you can make reference to those frameworks. These are my reaction. Thank you for the question, because I think it's very, very important.
Thank you. Jose Luis.
Thank you. I think I'm gonna go more with the second one. No, and just to take a different angle. By the way, when a couple of weeks ago we had the Latin American and Caribbean Economics conference, annual conference back there in Bridgetown in Cave Hill, no, in the University of the West Indies, and one professor from Harvard was talking about this, the future of AI and the impact, that it will have on workers and firms, etc. No, And something, was really thought provoking is that, we because this is a data driven, as Serena was mentioning on the risks, and with happen, this is a model, right? A large language model. And basically, if as we say in econometrics, no, so trash, if you put trash in the model, trash is gonna get out of the model, right? But the thing is that those models feed from a lot of information, and she was, putting some examples on, in some manufacturing, in industries, right? So workers are filmed, right? In our workspace, right? And this is about the corporate, that also touches on international organizations. If we use Copilot, for instance, or Cloud at organization level, so the company could have the company itself, let's say Microsoft or Cloud, but also, the IDB, the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, etc., have all of that information, how we interact with the AI, right? And this is happening now. She puts some examples on the Writers Association in Hollywood, complaining, the script, the screenplayers, etc. So there are jobs. So my concern is I don't want us to be replaced, right? So I don't want humans to be replaced. That's the 5 years from now kind of thing, the angle that I'm taking. And it's very important, right? Because a lot of the discussion that I see from this is that, how are we going as individuals to interact with these rights, So and some people already have, cameras on their lenses. So how I am going to allow a person to tape me when I'm talking to that person? So you see, these things are the ones that I'm worried about. But I think at the same time, I'm optimistic that, as a society, we are kind of having that this is the right discussion that we are having, right? So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you so much. Roxanne?
So I would say 5 years from now, I would like to think that we're not looking at if evidence is generated, but how it's continually used. That our M&E staff move from being optional to being strategic and a pivotal part of programs. That data is not, there are no gaps per se, but we have strong data systems that are interoperable. They can speak to each other across the region. I'd like to see M&E being central to strategy and not an afterthought, and evidence being real time and actually being used on a day-to-day basis in terms of program design and implementation. That would be a dream for me in M&E.
Thank you so much. Elisabetta?
Sorry, trying to find my way back on my three screens on a meeting. I have mostly 3 points, but one I'm going to piggyback on what Serena has mentioned. I think on the first questions, I really do think as AI is developing at a speed that has been perhaps incremental in the past years, we have not yet work our ways around ethics, governance, and regulations. And in particular, when we are sharing data, of course, for example, corporately, WFP uses Copilot, no Claude, no other open source AI. And there's also from a safeguard perspective, but also what we share on AI, we need to be careful, right? Especially for the one of us who are working with the people that we serve, beneficiaries' data, sensitive informations, and how we deal with that, I think still needs to be thought through. And I hope that in 5 years from now, that will be central. That we really have taken it seriously. Two very quick points. I think partnerships with the private sector. We've seen it with Microsoft. Of course, we are more on the strategic and how we interpret and use AI in our field, but we're not the leading in the development of AI itself. So perhaps if we can partner more with those who are leading, we can also shape some of the discourse on ethics and governance that relates on the sensitivity of our own work. And lastly, on the very interesting, Jose, I really appreciated your presentation on the function of time and machine time. I feel on the other side the assumptions that now everybody should be using AI, we at the strategic level sometimes we can't cope with the speed of AI, you know, even though, I mean, now also the request that comes to us is at the level as if we were AI agents, which we still remain human. So at the end of the day, you know, it's possible for AI to maybe publish a publication every day, but it's not possible for the person who ultimately needs to review and needs to put that strategic, you know, I don't think it's going to replace us. That our creative juice is our creative juice, but it does not, I think it does not compare to the speed that AI is going. And I hope that is also taken into consideration more seriously by organizations. So yeah, that's kind of like hope and 3 points for discussions there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I want to again thank our excellent speakers and all the participants for contributing to this rich and timely conversation on artificial intelligence, evidence, and development. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to Valerie Gordon and Homan Detwell, and the many colleagues whose dedication and behind-the-scenes efforts made this session possible. Events such as this remind us that meaningful dialogue and learning are always the result of collaboration. I would like to invite everyone to continue this conversation at CEVAL Space 2026, the Caribbean Evaluation Space. The Office of Independent Evaluation of the Caribbean Development Bank is organizing, which will take place in Barbados from 1 to 3 September 2026. The conference will bring together evaluators, policymakers, researchers, and development practitioners from across the region and beyond to exchange ideas, strengthen evaluation practice, and advance the use of evidence for better development outcomes. We will be delighted to welcome many of you there and continue building the future of evaluation in the Caribbean together. So for more information, please visit the CEVAL Space 2026 conference page. So let me leave you with 3 reflections. First, AI is not fundamentally a technology story. It's a governance story. Second, the future of evidence will depend not only on better algorithms, but on stronger institutions capable of using them responsibly. And third, trust remains the foundation on everything we do. And also, as Elizabeth had pointed out, the creativity juice, right? So as evaluators, policymakers, researchers, and development practitioners, our task is not simply to adopt AI. Our task is to ensure that AI strengthens evidence, supports learning, improves decision, and ultimately contributes to better outcomes for the people and communities we serve. On behalf of the Office of Independent Evaluation of the Caribbean Development Bank, I will also like to acknowledge our partners and colleagues from CEI, SALICES, and ALNAP, and all the institutions represented here today for helping create this space for reflection and exchange. As we continue navigating the opportunities and challenges presented by artificial intelligence, let us remain committed to strengthening evidence, safeguarding trust, and ensuring that innovation serves people and development outcomes. Thank you once again for joining us, and I wish you all an engaging and inspiring final day of gLocal Evaluation Week 2026. Thank you all. Valerie,
You.
go
Hi,
ahead.
yes, thank you so much, Tanya. This was just an awesome event. You know, could not have had a better event to close us off for this week. And just thanks to the partners again and all the panelists and the persons who took the time to join us here. You know, more to come, stay tuned. It's something we're just scratching the surface of, but we're gonna get into it some more.